Here at COP28, the conversations are focused on climate justice, equity, climate finance, developing world versus the developed world. To discuss what COP28 means as opposed to all the other climate change or climate summits that we've seen, there have been deliverables in the past. Will there be deliverables here today as well? We have Harish Hande from Self Foundation, a Success Award winner, focuses on solar energy and providing solar in rural areas, not just in India but across the world. We also have Aarti Khosla, who is with Climate Trends, a very important organization that has been doing a lot of work when it comes to tackling climate change, fighting climate change. So let's begin with you, Harish. A lot of conversations, but in terms of deliverables, what are your expectations from COP28?
I think there are two. My expectations from COP28 from an international perspective is that more money needs to flow into the developing part of the world in terms of interventions of renewable energy for better health services, better education, and better livelihoods. And I hope the commitments are made. And the second, I would see that also people should realize that as a country, India, we have excellent examples of innovation and replication, which we could. India is classically an R&D hub for sustainability that can be replicated in other parts of Africa and Latin America. I think those are the two big goals
Aarti, when it comes to India per se, we are looking at a lot of commitments, a lot of pledges, even from the developed world. You can talk about that. But walking back on coal, how does that look for India and India's position when it comes to the conversation on reducing dependency on fossil fuels?
These are fairly tricky conversations, if you see, and which is why there is so much involvement on how geopolitics impacts decisions. When it comes to India's coal supply and coal extraction and coal mining and power generation from coal, there are two things to keep in mind. There is one part on how India's peak load is going to be managed, and a lot of policymakers therefore suggest the importance of having coal as base load, and there is as well the need to have greater energy security as you're living in times of war, etc. Now that said, if you look at what recent analysis and research of various kinds shows, it's pretty clear that all kind of additional demand, whether at the community level or at the corporate level or even at the industrial level, is more and more being met by renewables. Whether it's green hydrogen or it is solar or it is decentralized applications in rural areas, in in community health centers, so on and so forth. As long as the additional demand can securely be met by renewables, it's just a point of how much the existing assets can be faded off as and when India continues to ramp up its renewables. And as I said, that a lot of it goes into the mix. It's the discussions on how other countries in the world are relying on oil and gas even, and is it possible for the world together to shed its dependence on fossil assets and move to renewables? That's the bigger game in the mix here.
Again, then the bigger question is about climate justice. I know that the Prime Minister of India is going to focus on climate justice, developed versus developing, the conversation that he's been having. Do you see the commitment across the globe, or are you seeing a lack in commitment, given whatever strategic, geopolitical, various other interests and reasons that each country is putting?
No, I see a lack of commitment on the rest of the world, but this is where I think India is in the best position to put that leadership of creating climate justice. And that is why I think that we are so nicely positioned as a country that provides inclusive, sustainable solutions for the poor to get out of poverty. Whether you talk about solutions for people affected by flood in Assam or droughts in Maharashtra, those are solutions that can be replicated in Ethiopia, Mali and Brazil, for example. So that's where I think we are in a good position to, and in coming next 5 years, I see us as the leader as a country. And so, and automatically if solutions come from our side, India side, making the poor resilient in Africa and other countries, the solutions that are provided in India and Africa then gets replicated in the upper countries. So I would reverse the and say that we take the leadership.
That's an important one, Arti. But again, coming back to the entire conversation that we've also been discussing with regards to climate change, with regards to tackling climate change, and the concept and conversation focused on loss and damage fund, climate financing. Where do you see the country's place? Explain to our viewers also, if you could come a little closer. Explain to our viewers also, Arti. What does this fund really mean? What does climate financing really mean? And where is the developing world at a loss when it comes to the developed world not committing itself?
Sure, and climate finance is a very broad phrase as such. Any money which can be received from the developed world and can be deployed in developing, least developing or island nations can be either towards mitigating emissions or adapting to what climate change has already brought about is classified as climate finance. Loss and damage finance is a fairly technical beast, and it's quite remarkable that actually today, on the first day of the COP28, a decision has been adopted on operationalization of the fund. So what you cannot mitigate and you cannot adapt to, you have to have some kind of mechanism to cope up with it, and that's loss and damage fund in short. Which means that when a cyclone strikes or a hurricane strikes or there is extreme weather event and there is disaster, you need first responders, you need people to be evacuated, you need the loss of life and other loss of property to be managed in some way, and the fund which will be utilized to do that is loss and damage fund. The discussions on loss and damage fund have been quite alive in the last 2 or 3 years since it was set up in 2013 at the COP in Doha in Qatar at that time. But today, you got the UAE committing 100 million, and then you got Germany matching with 100 million. There is 60-70 million pounds which the UK has committed, and a lot of the developing countries are coming up with small sums of money because the scale of finance needed is of the tune of 200 to 300 billion per year, and what you will get at this COP without any guesswork is somewhere around 500 million. So it's not even closer to what is needed, and that's the problem. You can celebrate the fact that there is stuff that is coming out in terms of climate finance, but the scale and speed at which it is coming is far, far short of what is needed, and that really is the real challenge. If you don't have the money to deal with any kind of measures when extreme weather strikes, how is it that you are even going to think of mitigation and adaptation which come at the second and third stage?
Also, will we be able to contain the global warming to under 1.5 Celsius? That's a very important question. But again, before I end this conversation, what is the big deliverable you see from COP28, and what would, according to you, be the biggest disappointment?
I think I hope the biggest commitment I would say is the focus on adaptation. And because today, when we are talking about SDG goals of 2030, many countries are lagging behind. And the biggest loser in the segmentation of the poor across the world. And if we do not look at focusing on mitigation and allocating resources for mitigation, you cannot go and tell the poor, I'm going to wait till 2030, wait till 2035. We have, and my disappointment will be that if more grassroots level approach to these financial what Arti spoke about, right? You can have meetings at the very high level and commitments, but the actual spenders of that commitments are going to the local communities across the world. How do we bridge that gap? There's a huge gap, and if that is not taken into consideration in this call, we will keep talking about these numbers and policies, etc. across the world, but actual work might not happen.